Apparently, I'm reacting to something that I have no idea what is about to happen, but it has something to do with bringing parents into my building more often. Oh boy.
This episode of the Christian Principles Podcast is brought to you in partnership with the Herzog Foundation, but please bear in mind the views and opinions expressed here are those of the hosts and not necessarily of the Herzog Foundation.
Welcome to the Christian Principles Podcast. I'm Matt George.
And I'm Mark Zockoll. Today, again, Matt gets to respond to something that he has no idea. Excuse me. I did give him a little bit of a clue in. I did give him a general.
Like a minute before we hit record.
A little general understanding of what he's going to talk about. Because sometimes just hearing Matt go off on just hearing Matt's personal thoughts could be valuable to you. Especially because he's in the thick of it right now.
Wonderful.
Wonderful.
That's
awesome time. Here we go. I'm going to read something to you. Now, this comes from a good friend, a former educator. I don't want to say former because remember, I'm preaching to the choir, but we as leaders, we teach no matter what our role. And even the people around us who don't think they teach are teaching. And people who don't think that they are, people who are even no longer formal in the classroom, they could be teaching in a Christian ministry or they could be teaching in a Sunday school or something like that as well. So anyway, this friend of mine, this peer, this guy who was formerly a public school teacher had a thought, shared it with me, shared it with a group of guys in a conversation who speak about, this is as free, I'm pretty free with you, pretty open with you in our conversation.
Yeah.
But if I had another group of people I was open and honest with and very real with, it would be this group of guys I talk to, as I'm sure you have your threads and your people you talk to. I hope you have those guys anyway. But here's the quote. I think education would be drastically improved if every parent was required to serve 1 week in school every 3 years in the capacity that their level of education allows. And every board member and every superintendent should be required to do the same thing for 2 weeks of every school year. Now, for further context, I mentioned this guy is a former public school teacher. So when he thinks about this, he thinks about this from public school setting. Okay. And literally, you are housing your faculty. Your faculty and staff are in part coming from these parents coming in, maybe not as homeroom teachers, but as paras, as one-to-ones, as staffers, as the lunch ladies, as those, whatever, as he notes here, whatever capacity their level of education allows. But the board members and superintendents, they're coming for 2 weeks every school year. So it's a little bit less than what jury duty would be, or perhaps right about what jury duty would be for these parents. It's about a week, and it's, every couple of years. What, for the public school system, before we get to you,
okay,
for the public school system, what do you think about that?
I should have told you about this before. Yeah, you want raw reaction. You're getting a raw reaction like that. There is so much logistic. My mind just goes to logistics, like managing that. Number one.
Well, let's start there. Let's start logistics.
Yikes.
Would it be possible to put that many parents to work?
I guess that's going to be the thing. I'm a little bit out of my element in knowing like how many families on average we're talking about for a public school, because to me, like that number is massive.
Okay, well, let's do a little bit of crossover there. Let's go to your school. For your school, let's say if you have 60 families.
Yeah, there we go.
Which meant that you had, at any given week, you're talking about, you wouldn't have all 60 families in for 1 week. How many weeks
and I'm guessing you'd also probably be saying, like, it's not every individual parent or guardian, but every family is represented. Right? So the 60 families means you have 60 representatives of those families, not multiply that by 2 because there's a mom and a dad or whatever else.
Okay. I would think of this as every parent. So I would think of
okay, you would think of it as everyone.
Let's go big. Let's say
wow,
every
okay,
parent.
okay. Well, so yeah, so we're splitting out potentially. We'll just go with your 60 families. That means 120 at most.
Yeah.
People coming in over 32, 36 weeks. So
you have a consistent volunteer in your class, in your school, for every week of the year, and you got to get through 120 of them.
Yeah.
So what is that? Four?
I was going to say
plus per week.
It's about 4 a week.
Could you put 4 people to work in your school?
Now that we break it down like that, yeah. I mean that to me is simple. To find there. I mean there are many responsibilities within a school day that if you have, even if it's just hall monitors, I mean,
absolutely,
there's easily something that can be done.
And how instructive for them, even being
just
hall
to
monitors.
See the day.
Just literally
being,
your job is to observe and make sure that it doesn't burn down.
Yeah. So my initial panic after thinking through that has tapered down to,
okay.
Yeah, that's totally manageable. I guess I'm still in the public school setting thinking, I don't know how that would work, but
okay.
But granted, even if it was like 4 per wing or per level or whatever else it is, that, or, even if it's 10, 12, 20, I think that might be a little bit more reasonable within that setting. But yeah, okay. So we're saying in our setting, 4 parents every week. They've been called up. Their number's been pulled.
And they have to go.
They have to. They
have to be there.
I mean, again, the question that comes is, what's the stick if they can't come? But
in the United States of this listener,
yeah,
in the United States of listener, this is
mandatory.
I like I just thought of the jury duty concept. But this is jury duty concept.
Yeah, sure.
That's what this is. This
jury
don't get out
jury
of it.
Duty level. You don't get out of it. The only way to get out of it is, contribute, $10,000 to our building project.
Sure. Absolutely.
Something like that. Yeah.
I'll take it.
You can buy your way out.
You can absolutely buy your way out of this. No problem, folks. Not an issue at all.
I mean, the goal, I'm assuming, and I think it's a good assumption. The goal of that being, families are more informed as to what is involved in the school day because they get to see beyond just the notes coming home, the homework coming home.
Yep.
And they can approach things with a more educated understanding.
And relationships too.
In relationships.
I mean, how many times did you go back to the one?
Yeah.
You talked to that parent in that initial family sit down, and that dad said, I like that guy because we talked about the Ravens.
Yeah.
Or how many times have I gone back to thoughts I came up with in that very specific one-time sit down that have carried through now my relationships with people?
Now I will share some from some experience.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I got some experience because we've done a couple things. I mean, granted, I think every school is going to have volunteer opportunities for parents before you get to this is required of everyone, but you're going to volunteer opportunities, and there's going to be those certain parents that will always jump in and be a part of that. But we have started doing for the past couple of years. Last year we started doing parents kind of provide a lunch for the faculty, and parents come in and monitor the students during lunch while the teachers get a little bit of time to eat on their own or eat together. Which has been a beautiful thing. But I have heard on more than one occasion after these things, the parent volunteers, after they're coming to the office to sign out, the comment of, and I told them, you gotta be careful making these things because I'll record it and actually, do something about it. And here we are, is we do not pay these teachers enough. That whole comment, because, sitting with the class at lunchtime for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It was like, there's a lot more involved in this than what I thought. And
absolutely.
And, just even that, not even getting to observe. There's also the opportunities where, a parent will come in to support a teacher or a field trip, or maybe even come in as a substitute. And yeah, they're typically walking away with those kind of, eye-opening experience that, we really need to show appreciation to our teachers because they go through a lot more than what we give them credit for.
Yep. No, when I think about this, your parents who walk away with that comment, I think about if this was the United States of Zockoll and I was going to make a declaration like this one of the things I would say is that every elected official has to spend double the time, especially
Oh,
anybody
yeah.
who sits like on a Department of Education structure or a Ways and Means committee where they're actually sending funding somewhere. And I'll go back to the public school side of this, and we were thinking Christian school side, your school. I'll think of the public school side for a second here. I think relatively the amount of volunteers that would be had would be relatively similar, because if we're just extrapolating it
Right.
over the number of
Right.
families, the average class size is going to be, within 5, even within 10 students of the same. We're going to have a lot more students in public schools, so a lot more of the parent
Yeah, I don't
number
have a
goes
great
up.
frame of reference for.
But of course, the same relative ratio of students in the classroom and whatnot. So we can imagine that the weeks in the school year, the number of volunteers would not overwhelm, but probably would be a useful thing for the school. Let's take the positive side and say, assuming logistics, assuming you have we're not getting into right now that we don't want certain
I was going to say,
criminal
yeah,
assets in
I
there or
think that's,
whatnot.
I
But
think
that's
I was just thinking if there's a negative to this, it would be, we mentioned what they are capable of doing based
sure.
on their education, but there's going to be those ones that are going to be disqualified, but
Of
I think
course.
it's going to be a minority. It's not going to be a
And,
massive,
and
massive
and
thing.
again, just like jury duty, criminals in prosecution are not sitting on jury duties.
Right, right, right.
So again, there's going to be parts of this that, in our great elaborate scheme, are going to be off the side. But for the majority, for the general good of the common man, that's what we're talking about
Yeah.
right now. So I'm going to keep focused there. I'm also going to keep focused. I'm also going to say that I don't think that number would be overwhelming for any organization,
No, and
because there's even the larger numbers would fit the larger buildings. So making those small assumptions, now my mind turns to, man, like I said earlier, if it's an elected official or someone who sits on a Ways and Means committee and sends money, I want them there even more, because it annoys me. My wife gets annoyed when she hears politicians who have only ever gone into a federally qualified healthcare center as patients and never gone in as providers or administrators in it trying to run the place, who then make laws concerning
sure.
federally qualified. And much the same for these persons. Most of them, yes, I'm sure, stepped into a public school at some point as a student. Fewer of them as a teacher or administrator. Some of them probably as parents. But again, that level of removal from the actual day-to-day operation, if they're harkening back to when they were a student or when they were a parent having students in the particular school, which, by the way, a lot of those people, they're not sending their kids to public school. They're sending them to private school anyway.
Yeah, right.
So if they're making, not that they shouldn't be allowed to or shouldn't make comments on the public school as private school parents, we don't believe in that either. But if they are going to have the opportunity to pass legislation about it, they should also have the opportunity to step into it and to be a part of it, and they should be well aware of it. I'll leave it there. Again, I know that this could blow up on me as well. I should absolutely have a say in the public school does as a public school member, even if my kid's in private school. And I don't think those two are incompatible. I don't think the one necessitates the destruction of the other. I'm saying is it would be useful for, it would be valuable for, and those that think everything is fine and hunky dory in the system. No, you step into the system and you see, oh wait, no, it's not all fine. It's not all perfect.
Yeah.
And for the, it's as much for those who have a wonderful view of it and those who have a horrible view of it to go and see.
Yeah, I would say, there is that potential for what we might call, micromanagement, in that, they come in and, just based on that initial review,
Yeah.
feel that they need to contribute. Like, oh, we need to change all these things.
Yeah.
When, there's a history and there's a process that they also need to be aware of.
I've been there for a week. I know everything.
Right.
Yeah.
But again, that's something you work through in the first, couple times.
Let's stay positive.
But again,
let's stay positive on it.
I'm bringing that up to say, like, if that is the worst case scenario, that does not negate the value.
Yes, I agree, 100%.
Right. And
I'd rather take that energy and redirect it. Yeah. It's so hard to create. I say it over and over. It's so hard to create energy. I would much rather redirect energy.
Yeah, and
much rather repurpose energy rather than try to create it.
As I think through having four
yes
in the pocket volunteers every week.
They're gonna be there.
You bank on them. I can just about guarantee there's still going to be opportunities where you've got to ask for more volunteers.
Absolutely.
I mean, you're going to have occasions that show up, events that require more volunteers. So I guess, again, I want to keep it positive, but if it is a required ministry, I'll put it that way. That's the way we've got to couch it, because it's like, you ought to look for ways to serve our community. But if you were making a requirement, perhaps they use that as a rationale to be like, well, and then that's my only volunteering I'm giving. Yes. I'm not going to give above that. I sincerely doubt that within our Christian communities that would be the case, at least for the majority.
Yeah.
But I could see that as another thing to work through.
This episode of the Christian Principles Podcast is brought to you by the Herzog Foundation. As Christian educators, we know that liberty without truth is fragile, and truth starts with God. That's why the Herzog Foundation has launched the Faith and Freedom 250 campaign, an initiative that equips schools and families to connect the biblical roots of American freedom to the next generation. Having started on July 4th, 2025, and following through until July 3rd, 2026, Herzog is releasing short videos each Friday, highlighting voices from across the country, educators, leaders, parents, and everyday Americans, reflecting on key moments in our nation's history and the importance of commemorating 250 years of liberty. We all understand how faith has always been central to our country's founding and why it still matters today. It's an incredible way to integrate history, civics, and biblical worldview into your school's curriculum, especially as we approach America's 250th birthday in 2026. Visit herzogfoundation.com to view their free resources and get started today. And make sure to tell them that the fellas here at the Christian Principles Podcast sent you.
Yeah. We mentioned logistics. We hit logistics. Let's jump to spiritual. What would be the spiritual impact? And in your school, you are your covenant school, in so much that you have an understanding that these parents are coming in, that you are critically aligned with what they believe about the big questions of life, why we are here, who God is, what the Bible means to us, where truth comes from. You are in an institution where you believe that you have critically aligned parents, homes, families. What is the value of this new, you got to be here for a week on that level?
Yeah, another beautiful thing I see in that is part of this volunteering time is they have to be in chapel. So you're getting parents in to boots on the ground, hear what the kids are hearing. That I don't want to say is taken for granted. I think all of our parents would assume that these conversations are happening and these spiritual times are happening. But, in the back of my mind as a school administrator is how often are the parents getting this opportunity
or taking the opportunity.
Yeah. And it, I as a leader of the school, I'm often thinking I need to be creating more of those opportunities for our parents. But that's adding to what my already understood responsibility is of providing those opportunities for their students, because that's what they're paying for. So I need to make sure that is priority number one. But we have said over and over and over again that priority by doing that for the students is only part of the battle.
Yes.
So
Yep.
so having that just automatically built in to, so they're seeing the classes, they're seeing the chapels, they're seeing like that's going to contribute. The other thing that comes to my mind is oftentimes the only interactions that parents are getting are with the teachers of their student. Hopefully not the administration, but the administration, if, it does escalate to that, but then also the parents of their student's class. Maybe that group that they're rubbing shoulders with, and they may only be reaching out of, hey, are you guys seeing all this homework? And it can tend to be a bit of a negative Nancy, breeding ground. But in this case, where you can get them rubbing shoulders with other parents, you've got your high school parents that have gone through the program, rubbing shoulders with some kindergarten parents that are just coming in. That's a beautiful thing as well, to be able to offer that opportunity for that kind of interaction. And maybe, friendships are built through that.
I'm glad you got on relationships.
As we're getting to, and again, that's when I've been thinking about this a lot lately, that, our personal relationship with the Lord is only as strong as, number one, our personal walk with him in his word, but also our walk with other believers. I think that is 100% a biblical understanding, that you don't neglect the fellowship of believers, because it has a direct correlation on our walk with God. So, we're strengthening that avenue. Not that the school replaces the church in any way, shape, or form, but, even though you might have, student A on this hall or parent A is on doing hall duty in this hallway, parent B is in this classroom, so they're not necessarily with each other all day. But, there could be a morning time where you're explaining the duties and they can talk to each other, and maybe there's a break time or afterwards. So there's going to be that fellowship opportunity.
I love the relationships part of this that you brought up. Something I, as a parent, and I never wanted to say this, and I truly believed that I was able to critically assess to some level. I'm going to tell a story. When I was a principal in my first installment, I sat with a mother who told me that when I had kids, I would understand why I would not pay my tuition bill. And it was pretty much flatly said in that manner. And in this situation, my response was, well, no, especially when the money that's coming for this tuition bill is one which is coming from a, in this situation, someone else, literally for the payment of the tuition and nothing else. And that tuition money didn't make it to us. So that being the case, at that moment I said, I don't need you telling me that I will learn something that I don't know when I'm a parent. Just because I'm not a parent at this moment doesn't mean I can't critically assess how parents Christian parents ought to think and feel and be. So in this situation, I don't want to say that I wasn't critically assessing the value of Christian educators prior to having children in school. Hopefully what I can say now is, to the point that I'm trying to get to, that I'm sorry to admit so long to get to, was I value so much more right now the firm belief, understanding, and beautiful thing, which is a critically aligned Christian educator role model for my children. And that is more meaningful now. Yeah, I'll say it. It's more meaningful now than it was. It's always been meaningful to me. It's always been challenging to be a appropriate role model for children, because I believe that education is not just about the degree, of course, but it's also about so much more. And living out Christ in front of those students is a huge deal.
Yep.
But I do appreciate it so much, and to some extent a little bit more now. So if I have parents coming into the school system, I want them to to evaluate the teachers that are there. And it's a call for those teachers to be on their A game. I mean, I see this also beneficial for the faculty and staff because they're going to have to be on their A game because they know that moms and dads are in a lot more. What they're saying is going to be reviewed by more people, seen by more people, talked about by more people, responded to by more people, criticized by more people. You know, that's to keep somebody on their A game. That transparency is a good thing. You know, I'm not a capitalist and a free market societyist who doesn't, you know, who then doesn't want transparency. You know, we don't want that. We want the openness that should come with living before Christ. Do what we do as unto Christ and not unto men. That should make transparency much more simple in those ways. So when you bring up relationships, I think that's a massive part of this would be, I want parents in my building because I want parents to see and to build relationships with those teachers and to see how much those Christian role models mean. And if this was something where I had a parent come from a different school setting who, like in COVID, they didn't realize what Christian schools were or offered, and they had a previous, you know, their weeks spent previously with the previous school they were at, they weren't critically aligned with those teachers outside of just A, B's, and C's of education, but now they are in critical alignment with these teachers. I imagine that would be so much more meaningful to them, having gone and seen the teachers from before who maybe they were a Muslim teacher, maybe they were an atheist teacher, but they were teaching the children.
Yeah.
Now they're critically aligned with these Christian role model teachers that, you know, of course, anybody puts themselves up in front of somebody else and says, you know, follow me as I follow Christ. What a crazy, awesome, difficult, terrible thought.
Yeah.
But we do need people like that. We need to expect that we can find people like that and try to, you know, help them be such. Man, that would be beautiful.
Yeah, I do think there's other things that I'm thinking through that I would want to make a part of this program. Like I think there's definitely a need for like an orientation type.
Sure. Yeah.
Whenever they come on the first time, what the expectation of they're supposed to do versus the expectation of what they're definitely not supposed to do. And I'd probably,
just like jury duty.
Yeah, I'd probably also make it as much as I possibly can in this situation. Like we're gonna put you in a situation where you're not interacting with your own child as much.
Yes.
Because I can definitely see, we talk about putting the teachers on their A game. I could also see the teachers ready to just revolt if they know every single one of their parents is going to be coming into their classroom and evaluating. And I mean, granted, we have an open door policy. Anybody can do that.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of fear and trepidation, but at the same time, if you're doing your job right, like who cares? But I can definitely see those, there are going to be those parents that want to micromanage, that want to, you know, critique every little thing. And then might even respond with, well, I'm just going to take my child home, you know, and then you have that situation to work through. And, but
then they wouldn't be filling out their week though. They'd only get a half day credit for that. So, you know,
sure,
but
then are those the parents you want to hold accountable to make sure that they come back? You know, so
we're being positive.
Yeah, we are being positive. And I definitely see more value in if you can find a way to communicate it with your parents, your school families, that listen, this is not only a needful thing, but it's a valuable thing. And we're asking that you cooperate, you know, with us. Because at the end of the day, that's what you have to ask, you know, because I'm sure you're going to get the kickback. Well, we pay for this, you know, why are you making us give free time, you know? But
again, if this was jury duty and there wasn't,
if it wasn't in ministry and this is your child, you need to be your child's number one advocate and you need to know the institution. I say that in new parent interviews all the time. Like, you know, this is just as much an interview for the parents interviewing us as it is us interviewing the parents, because they have to trust us. They have to trust that we're doing what we say we do. And just like with accreditation, the only way that you can do that is to get evaluated. You have to come in and see it. And we've avoided specifically talking about school board, I mean, they've been alluded to and mentioned, but the same thing. Don't school board come into these meetings demanding all kinds of changes when you have not taken the time to come in and see how it's actually done.
Yep. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's.
Now, you mentioned that we would perhaps keep the parent away from their own child's classroom. On the flip side, if I was looking for a positive, if I put the parent in the child's classroom, we very well may have parents who have an understanding of the perfection of their own.
Yeah.
When really the understanding should be not that their child is perfect, but rather that their child is imperfect.
Yeah.
And they come to understand that as the reality once they actually see their child in action.
That is very much, even when I alluded to our lunch time observations, that is 100, nearly 100% of the time, it's, how do they deal with my child? Because I can't even deal with my child. So yeah, no, it is more that way, but we all know, and you don't want to throw parents all into one bucket, but we know those parents. We would very much be aware, like, this is definitely the parent we do not want to be, in Johnny's classroom, because, they'll be, hugging and kissing on Johnny, and it'll be a terrible day for Johnny. It'll be a terrible day for the teacher. So, it's just.
All right. We've talked about this now.
That's a great thought. Thank you, friend, for bringing this point up. And I'm sure there's more to unpack with that, but I think it's been good.
I'm a lot more interested in it than I am disinterested in it. We know there's schools out there that have the Parent-Teacher Association fee, which would be either you pay, I'll throw a number out there, $50 per parent, and then you do not have to provide volunteer hours, or you provide volunteer hours and we apply that money back to your tuition or whatever it happens to be. So this is different. Again, this is a more, think of it like jury duty. That's how we're talking about this. But tell us if you have a system that is anything different than a PTA required service time. Does anybody have the expectation and communicate an expectation to parents that they are supposed to come to the school and be a part of the school as a volunteer for some amount of time? I especially think of a startup doing this, and a startup needing that sort of buy-in from parents. We got to keep moving. We're going to have our Christian Administrator Spotlight right now. It goes to Elijah Platchek. Elijah Platchek was shouted out by your teachers at the Mid-Atlantic Christian School Association's Educators Conference. You are, we know who you are, Elijah. But Elijah is the lower school principal, early childhood and lower school principal at Lancaster County Christian School in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. And several of your teachers reached out and wanted to praise you for what you are doing. So we thank you for that. And I'm going to pray for you now, Elijah. Father in heaven, thank you so much for Elijah. Thank you for what he does. Thank you for what LCCS does there in Lancaster County. Bless him today. Might the opportunity he has to interact with parents be sweet today. And may even their interactions with parents be reviewed and made as appropriate and strengthening as they can be for both parties. And we'll thank you and praise you for it. We love you. Give Elijah everything he needs today and even more that he didn't expect to receive from you. We'll thank you for it. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. Thanks for the raw reaction, Matt.
Yep. Anytime.
Oh, well, yeah. I'll seek it out again. But for everybody else, thanks for growing with us today.
We want to thank you for listening. We're honored that you spend this time with us each week. Our heart is to bring you practical conversations and resources that really serve you as a Christian school leader. One of the best ways you can help us spread the word is by leaving us a review and sharing the podcast with other Christian school principals you're connected with. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Join the conversation and share any posts that resonate with you. Every share makes a difference in helping more leaders find encouragement and practical tools. And remember, the podcast is just one way we help. We also love serving schools through speaking and workshops. Our keynotes and sessions are designed to give you actionable strategies you can take back to your team and implement right away. If you'd like more details, just send us an email at info@christianprinciplespodcast.com. We'd love to connect. Until next time, thanks for joining us on the Christian Principles Podcast.